Hi, I'm Joe DeLisi, and welcome to the Joe DeLisi Financial Advisor Podcast. We are going to talk 2025 portfolio prep. Now, today, if you're watching video, you're going to see me referencing all my notes because anytime that I look at numbers and we slice and dice and have some fun with it, compliance has their say and make sure that what I say is accurate, and so I have to make sure I read the right data. So at the end of 2023, if you remember, if you go back and listen, you can, obviously it's archived on wherever you're listening to your podcasts. I reviewed what went on in the year at the end of 2023 that affected your portfolio. And so just a quick overview, 2023, we saw the bank failures. I think that was in March of 23. We saw a downgrading of the US debt, which most people have already forgotten about. We saw the horrific terror attack against Israel. And we spent time going over predictions of the big banks prior to the year end and how miserable their predictions were turned out to be. So that's what we talked about roughly this time last year. Now, I'm not saying, that the banks were miserable in their predictions to beat them up. They can't predict anything better than you can or I can. Because nobody knows the future. And if they did know the future, guess what? They're not going to sell that future to you for 1% or for free on an article. Because, most of that stuff is just clickbait. But it works. So they use it. So I'm not going to beat them up, but obviously they can't predict the future. Now, as for what I said last year, because I made a few real general predictions, I wouldn't even call them predictions, let's just say guesses. They were very obvious, okay? And so here's how that went. I said that the 2024 year would be engulfed in the presidential election. That was really went on the ledge there. I guessed that the Republican primary would be a mess. I was way off. The Republicans, they quickly moved to choose Donald Trump as their nominee. Very little, kerfuffle going on there. That was kind of a foregone conclusion and done. I guess that the Democrats wouldn't know who their candidate was, and I was right on that one. They swapped out President Biden for VP Harris, and I didn't see this one coming. They didn't even hold an actual primary. So I kind of got those two things right, but I didn't make any market predictions for 2024 because I had no idea. And I have no idea what's going to happen in 2025 or 2026 or any of the years. And if I did, I wouldn't tell you. I would just have all the money. And I've said that to you if you've been my client. I've said that for 15, 20, almost 30 years doing this now. That's all I've said. I will never change my tune on that. What I did say is whatever happens, I will not be the weak link in your portfolio. I have found, I work with hundreds of individual client households, but I also speak to hundreds of financial advisors every year from very large stages. And I'll be honest with you, what I've seen is that the advisors are the problem a lot of times. It's not really the clients. I mean, clients worry, but they look to the advisor to be strong and fearless. And a lot of times the advisor is the first one to say, this time feels different, let's move money around. I'm not gonna do that. I'm not gonna be your weak link. We're never gonna speculate, we're never gonna gamble, not gonna happen on my watch. That's what I said at the end of last year. Little hint, that's the same thing I'm gonna say for 2025. But I will say 2024 was no easy year. We had 2 assassination attempts on former president and current Republican, I wrote nominee at the time, but the president-elect Donald Trump. We had the Democrats replace their candidate without, as I mentioned, a primary voting process. We had a lot of legal battles play out in court with Donald Trump. We had weak employment numbers, we had sticky inflation, and we had a lot of global military unrest, which continues as the recording of this podcast with basically Syria falling and the Assad regime, I believe, in Russia. In spite of all that, 2024 markets performed amazingly well. Again, as of the recording of this podcast, I'm recording this on December 10th. My daughter Birdie's 5th birthday, so congratulations, she got to 5 as I'm approaching 50. So what does that teach us? It teaches us we got to ignore predictions. Okay, 2024 was not an easy year globally and stability-wise, and yet markets flourished. So for fun, I want to look back, just like we did last year. We looked at what the banks predicted for 2023 and how wrong they were. Let's look at what they predicted for 2024 using their targets for the S&P 500 as our guide. You ready for this? JP Morgan said that the S&P would end 2024 with a target of 4,200, Wells Fargo 5,535, RBC 5,150, Citi 5,100, Bank of America, you might know them as Merrill Lynch, or really I should say Merrill Lynch, you would know them as Bank of America, 5,400, UBS, 5,600, Morgan Stanley, 4,500, and Barclays, 5,200. So what are we ranging there from? We're ranging from JP Morgan on the bottom end of 4,200 to, looks like UBS was the top end of that of 5,600. Where is the S&P currently? On Bertie DeLisi's 5th birthday on December 10th, 2024, 60-10. So no one's within even 400 points of being correct. And guess what? Those same banks in 2022 predicted the S&P to end 2023 anywhere from 3,900 to 4,200. And do you know where the S&P closed last year? 4,770. So it's not just this last year where they were way off, but the year before as well. So again, I'm not beating them up. I'm not saying they should be able to predict the future. They can't. Nobody can. I can't, you can't, they can't. It doesn't matter how big the name is. Here's the great news. You don't need predictions. Okay, we've talked about this. We don't have to speculate. We don't have to gamble. You don't need 20% annual returns every year. As long as you're my client and we are following a well thought out investment policy statement that is built to support returns that you're going to need in order to achieve over the decades, in order to hit your goals of retirement or education planning, etc. As long as we stick to that. And by the way, for my clients closer to retirement, we're looking to the markets for income. Right? We're not looking necessarily for 20% growth. As long as we do all that, we can potentially achieve, whether that's growth or income, by building and maintaining a very well diversified global portfolio and sticking with it. Now, it sounds too simple. It's not. The sticking with it part is behavioral. It's very complicated. It's very different. Just think about every time that you start that diet right after Thanksgiving. By day 3, it's usually shot because behaviorally, it's very hard to hold on to that kind of stuff. So what's my prediction for 2025? No idea. I don't know. The next 20% movement in markets, it could be up, it could be down, but the next 100% movement is up. Hear me say that again. The next 20% movement up or down, it could go either way. It's a coin flip. But the next 100% movement is up. We've never had a negative 100% market loss. We know historically entire markets have not gone to zero, but they can double. We've seen it time and time again. So in 2025, my prediction is you'll continue to invest. You'll let capitalism work its magic on compounding your wealth. You're going to have a great new year, and I'm going to see you in 2025. And now we move to compliance. Registered Representative, Financial Advisor, Park Avenue Securities, LLC, Pass, OSJ 5280, Carroll Canyon Road, Suite 300, San Diego, California, 92121, 619-684-6400, Securities Products and Advisory Services offered through Pass, member FINRA, SIPC, Financial Representative, the Guardian Life Insurance Company of America, Guardian, New York, New York. Pass is a wholly owned subsidiary of Guardian. Westpac Wealth Partners, LLC is not an affiliate or subsidiary of Guardian or Pass. Insurance products offered through Westpac Wealth Partners and Insurance Services, LLC, a DBA of Westpac Wealth Partners, LLC, California Insurance License Number OD34103. This podcast is for informational purposes only. It's not to be construed as tax, legal, or investment advice. Although the information has been gathered from sources believed to be reliable, please note that individual situations can vary. Therefore, the information should be relied upon only when coordinated with individual professional advice. Guest speakers and their firms are not affiliated with or endorsed by Past, Guardian, Westpac Wealth, and opinions stated are their own. Guardian and subsidiaries, agents, and employees do not provide tax, legal, or accounting advice. Consult your tax, legal, or accounting professional regarding your individual situation. All investments and investment strategies can contain risk and may lose value. Diversification does not guarantee profit or protect against market loss. Equities may decline in value due to both real and perceived general market, economic, and industry conditions. This material is intended for general use. By providing this content, Park Avenue Securities, LLC, and your financial representative are not undertaking to provide investment advice or make a recommendation for a specific individual or situation, or to otherwise act in a fiduciary capacity. Past performance is not a guarantee of future results. Indices are unmanaged, and one cannot invest directly in an index. 7406973.1 expires 12/26.